And it all comes down to pretty simple math. He had some advantages too. His wife and him were both software developers, so they both made good income. So yeah, at that time I said, oh my, this is worth pursuing, and I'm going to do it. And I did some calculations, and I figured I would need about $1 million, and I figured it would take me about 4 years to do that, but 1,500 days sounded a little bit better. So I ran downstairs. I remember this. I'm like, "Hey, wife, all the stress I'm having at work." She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I just found this website, and I Googled early retirement, and this guy says if we save and invest and do all this stuff, we can retire in about 1,500 days." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she was completely on board with it. And then I'm like, you know what? I see this blog, and I think it'd be fun to write about that too. I'd like to start a blog too. And she goes, "I think that's a horrible idea." So it always
Supportive
cracks
wife.
me up that I came running downstairs with my harebrained idea to retire in 1,500 days. She was completely fine with that, didn't question that. But hey, I want to start a blog and write about it. No, you should never do that. That's ridiculous. So yeah, that's how the blog was born. And yeah, my initial goal was to have $1 million and no debt. There's something called the 4% rule, and you can Google that rule. I won't go into a lot of the mechanics unless you want me to, but basically, it states once you can live on 4% of your savings, you can retire. So I figured I need about $40,000 a year to live, so I needed $1 million, and that was that.
So, but that's going off of, and correct me if I'm wrong, the historical trend of inflation and interest rates equaling out at about 4%. So if you can make 4% on your investments consistently, that's a reasonable expectation. So you reasoned that if you have a nest egg, that at 4% you could draw that off without killing the golden goose. You could collect the eggs at 4%. That's when you could retire. That's a basic summary of what you just said.
Yeah, that's correct. There was a study, I think the original one is called the Trinity study, and it was like back testing of stock market returns. And they went through all these scenarios, all these 30-year scenarios, and tried to figure out how much money you would need to last. The initial time was 30 years, but it turns out most of the time, if you last 30 years, you're going to have a lot more money at the end of 30 years if you stuck with that 4%. Again, accounting for inflation, as you implied.
Yeah. So you laid out a plan and said, I need, in your case, it was $1.1 million, right? And that's what you said you needed.
It was originally $1 million and no debt, but then I decided that I liked my house debt, so I decided to keep that. And my trade-off to doing that was to have enough money to cover the cost of my house. So I had about $120,000 in mortgage debt at that time, so it would have been $1,120,000. And I moved right after we started the blog too. We decided to change up our life a little bit. We moved from our ridiculous McMansion type thing to a more modest home.
So the first thing you did on your path to being a millionaire was stepped your lifestyle down.
Correct.
That's counterintuitive. Millionaires have lavish lifestyles.
You think they do, but it's not actually true. You read one of the books that kind of changed my thinking around all this was The Millionaire Next Door. Have any of you ever heard that or read
Absolutely.
that book?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the main tenet of the book, as the title implies, is most millionaires aren't the ones driving the fancy cars, living in these huge houses. Those people are actually the ones about to go broke. They're a layoff and 6 months away from bankruptcy. The real wealth in the country, in the United States, is mostly stealth. These people aren't flashy. They drive old Camrys or F-150 pickup trucks, and they live in modest homes. So that's the real lifestyle of wealth. It's not what you see on TV, lifestyles of the rich and famous. I guess I'm dating myself. When's the last time that's been on the air? I'm old, by the way.
With Robin Leach.
Yeah, Robin Leach, that's it.
Why was he always shouting? That's all I wanted to know. He was just shouting all the time.
Because the microphones weren't good quality, so he had to yell to hear over the hopping of the boat across the waves.
He has way too much champagne and caviar on board.
There you go. I guess the more champagne you get, the louder you get. That seems to be a rule too. So you laid out a plan to, in 4-ish years, to have socked away $1 million. What did you start with, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, at that time, and I'd always been a saver. I was a born saver. I always liked to earn money and sock it away. I didn't do as well as I could before that day, but at that day, at the time I actually started the blog, I had $586, 586,043, so $586,000, and we also had $150,000 in home equity. So what does that come out to? Like $730,000.
So you're more than halfway there when you started.
Yeah, although I didn't count my house equity was yeah, you're right. I was more than halfway there.
And this all started because you decided there needed to be a point at which you didn't have to work anymore.
Yeah, and work is a tricky word. So I'll probably always work, but there's a difference between having to work and working for money or working at things that you truly enjoy, where the metric and the measure of your success isn't income, isn't dollars. I just wanted options in life. I don't want stuff. I want options. I want to be able to live my life how I want to live it without someone telling me what to do.
And you were you're a coder, right? That's what you do.
Yep, correct.
And are you still a coder for hire?
I am. I went down to part time now, and I'll probably be no time soon, but I'm still trying to figure out a date for that.
So you reach this goal, this financial independence, this eureka moment. I don't have to work anymore. Angels are singing from heaven, and then you got up the next day and went to work.
Yeah, people call me out all the time on that too. Yeah, you're completely right. I still work now, and but I've got a plan. I'll leave it at that. There's some things I want to wrap up at work. For example, I designed part of the system, and we're deploying a new system soon, and I want to be around to transfer some of my knowledge to the next person. I don't want to leave anyone high and dry. If I had $10 million tomorrow, I would still stay on long enough to give them a graceful exit. My work has been good to me, and I appreciate that, so I'm not going to leave them in a bad place.
Okay, so you're shattering another stereotype. You're a millionaire who doesn't live a lavish lifestyle, and you have principles and morals?
I don't know if I'd go as far as to say that. I like beer. Can I be principled and still like beer?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's counter to what you hear, too. Millionaires get all their money by swindling people.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case at all. That's probably what we see on TV, and that's what the media portrays. We see people like Bernie Madoff or and his brethren doing very bad things. They make lots of money in very bad ways. But I don't think you have to be a bad person. I don't think. And I'm not saying Steve Jobs was a bad person, but he surely wasn't the nicest person in the world. I don't think you even have to be that mean to become rich. It's not that difficult.
All right. Well, since you just led us into that, give us a quick rundown. Obviously, this is all you've kept a running blog at 1500 days. That's 1500days.com. But give us the 10-minute version of your step along the way of your process to the non-Steve Jobs way to be a millionaire.
Yeah, well, I was extremely fortunate. I mentioned a couple minutes ago that I was always a saver. I always liked to work, but I didn't really know what to do with my money after that. I'd heard of the stock market, but money and business, all that stuff, had no interest to me, even when I was in college. And then one day I had this girlfriend in college who wasn't a good person, but one day she came home and said, "Hey, I heard about this financial seminar, and I think we should go to it." I'm like, "Oh, geez, this thing sounds like some kind of scam where they're going to try to some kind of pyramid thing." Or I'm like, "I do not really want to go to this." And then she's like, "Well, they've got free food there." I'm like, "Oh, well, now I think it's even more of a scam, but I don't have any money, so I'll totally go for the free food." It goes a long way when you're a college student making $4.25 an hour. That was minimum wage way back then. But anyway, I go to this thing, and it turns out it wasn't a scam. It was this. I wish I could remember the name of the organization because I'd like to go back and thank them. But they were these guys who worked for a nonprofit, and they just taught the very basics of investing. Just that the index investing is primarily the way to go. It's safe and secure. You shouldn't try to deal with stocks or anything like that. That's very dangerous. And but there was one point where we were sitting there, and I think I was in the back row, kind of half paying attention. And one of the speakers goes, "Hey, you kid there in the back, I need to talk to you." I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, I have 5 words for you. Your advantage is your youth. I'm like, whoa. And then he went on to say, you're young. If you start investing as soon as you have a job, I understand you're in college, but if you start investing as soon as you have a job, you're going to give that money lots of time to compound. A lot of these, and I looked around, and most of the people in this thing were at least 50. There was one guy who looked like he was about 80. So the moment the lesson was already gone for them, but for me, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And it is. You do some simple math, and there's always the famous thing you always hear about where a 25-year-old invests $2,000 a year for 5 years versus the 30-year-old who invests $2,000 a year for the rest of their life. And the question is, who ends up with more money? The guy who just put $10,000 in and stopped, or the guy who put money in for the rest of his life? And I'm sure you guys know the answer to this.
Yeah. The guy who did it early and stopped.
So it's the guy who put the $2,000 in for 5 years and stopped. Yeah, that's the right answer. And it's because you're giving your money time to work for you. And that's really the key thing. Whenever someone questions my lifestyle or says, yeah, I'm not sure I'm game for this, what I reply back is, money working for you is much, much, much better than you having to go into the office for money. Do you want to go sit in a soft cube for 2,000 hours a year, or however many hours the average person works, or would you rather have your money make more money, and that just does it passively? You're not doing much of anything. Since I started the blog, almost every year, my money has made far more money than I have from my work, and I don't think I'm underpaid. I have healthy income. That's just wonderful to sit back there and see. And I'm only 43. I imagine what this is going to be like when I'm an old fart, when I'm 65 playing shuffleboard in Florida, or whatever 65-year-old people do. So that's really the key. If you happen to be young, to try to put as much money away as you possibly can and let that money work. One other point I'll make, and then I'll shut up after that, is I remember when I first started investing in my normal job, I would get excited when the stock market had a good day. I'd come home and see my portfolio up by like $100. Like, wow, look at that. That's incredible. And now there's some days it's up by like $10,000 or $20,000. And it's kind of like, nah, you don't appreciate it. You grow used to it. And I was thinking about that the other day. And at first I thought, man, you're a jerk because you don't appreciate this. But then again, it's just getting used to the new. It becomes the normal. And it's pretty wonderful. I recommend it for anyone.
Right, I have to stop us just real quick here. I'm having a minor technical glitch. Give me 5 seconds.
Ooh. Carl, this is going really well. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Me too.
Good. Thank you.
All right, I'm back on board.
Okay, before you get started, Mark, I just want to follow up one thing, Carl.
Sure.
You know, once you reach that point to where, okay, I've got the money, I no longer have to go to this job. Doesn't that just relieve a lot of stress, and all of a sudden stuff that used to like, I can't wait till I get out, it's like, I don't care, because if I wanted to, I could leave tomorrow, and it makes your job much more enjoyable, so I've heard.
Oh, heck yeah. Oh, my, that is completely true. And you become a more honest person, too. I mean, and I don't think I was ever dishonest, but sometimes I would hold back in my opinions. But now I can really be pure in my true self, for better or worse. But you're absolutely right. A bad day doesn't have the same meaning, because you know you're not stuck in that hole for the next 20 or 30 years. You know that you're there because it's optional, and you could leave at any time. And it completely changes the perspective of it. Yeah, it's wonderful.
So where do you live, Carl?
I live in Colorado.
Colorado. Okay. Because you said something earlier. You said you think you can live on $40,000 a year. In Colorado, that seems like a pretty low median income at $40,000. What made you? How can I phrase this? That's not a lavish lifestyle. It sounds to me like you have always been one to live below your means. I mean, you started out with nearly $700,000 before you decided you didn't want to work anymore. What are the lifestyle tips, the traits that have led you to be able to do this relatively quickly and at least how it seems on your blog, easily? You're not a person. You can't have been a person who has spent money before it comes in and started on the footing you are. So it sounds to me like you're a person who's always made more than you spent. and you're looking to retire on an income of 40,000 a year, which is pretty modest. So what does that say about your lifestyle and your propensity toward spending?
Yeah, and the first thing I want to say in regards to all that is I'm far from perfect. I lust after all kinds of stuff. I'm a super geek, and I look at phones that come out and computers that come out and cars. I love cars, but I've been able to suppress or resist these temptations. And one way how I do it is, and I give this advice to other people too. I tell them it's not like you can never have your, and sorry, Mark, pickup truck. I think you mentioned that a couple podcasts again. No, pickup trucks are huge here in Colorado. So if someone's like, "Well, I feel like this is too much of a compromise," I tell them, I'm not saying you can never have it. I'm just saying take care of your finances first, and then you can have your pickup truck down the road. But I suspect wealth has a funny way of changing you. So once you have that money, you might not want that. Like I've lusted after a car called an Acura NSX for a long time. It's an old Japanese supercar. I've gone as far as test driving them a couple times, but it doesn't mean the same to me. And it's kind of strange. I think it's just because I know I can have it, so I don't put it on the high pedestal now. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the other thing I'll say is I think my lifestyle is pretty lavish, but I've worked hard for it. So, for example, if you saw my current house when I bought it, it looked horrible. We bought this thing for $176,000. It was a foreclosure that renters had lived in and not treated it well. There were ants all over the place. They stole the appliances. It was terrible. But what I did is I worked for the past 4 years and fixed the thing up, and it looks really nice now. And we just had it appraised for $460,000, which I think is a pretty luxurious house. It's one of the nicest homes I've ever lived in, but I did it myself. Yeah, so I think I spent about $100,000 on the whole thing and a lot of my own time. But now it's worth over $200,000 more that I've got into it. And yeah, so I don't live a lavish lifestyle. We travel all the time. We use credit cards and travel hack to do that. We hardly ever pay for our airfare or hotel rooms or rental cars just because we play the credit card game, which I recommend for a sophisticated. It's a sophisticated strategy. You have to know when to cancel the cards and how to get these points, and it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game, but it's definitely worthwhile. I'll tell you the most extreme example of it. My family and I went to there was a British Airways card, and my wife and I signed up for it, and the four of us, the whole family, flew round trip to Hawaii for $192. Those were the fees on the card, and the taxes we had to pay for the airfare. I think this is a while ago, and then we had enough points left over for 3 round trips to Florida. So, and I think that might have been another $75 or something like that. So I don't think I don't live a lavish lifestyle. We don't go out to eat all the time like some of our friends and family, and we don't have cars. Cars are a huge source of money. If you can be okay with your old car, you can take that so far. And the thing I drive is a 2003 Honda Element, which I feel kind of goofy because I purchased the thing new, but now it's long paid. I had the thing paid off for a long time. The insurance is cheap because it's old. I don't need fancy insurance on it, and I don't really care if someone dings in a parking lot. I do care a little bit, but yeah, all that money I'm not paying for a car payment and for insurance. I can invest. So cars are the number one thing, and I don't think I'm giving up that much in life by not having a brand new car. Although I would love a new Tesla. If any of you would like to send me a Tesla, I would not turn that down.
Yeah, I was just this week involved in a car accident in my 11-year-old pickup truck, and dented the back of it, and I just look at it. More character.
Exactly, character. That's
Yeah,
it.
and after a while, once the shiny is off of it, you do care less about it. That's true.
Yeah, and stuff like that provides. It does make you happy. It would make me happy if I had a Tesla, but wouldn't make me as happy as having options and wealth in my life. So I think my life is very lavish because I have options.
Hey, Carl, let me, it's Miles here. I was just going to ask you a couple of questions that kind of, let me play devil's advocate with you a little bit.
Sure.
Because we have listeners who are probably blown away by your story and where you've gotten to, but they're all looking at themselves going, yeah, but I could never do that. Or yeah, but maybe he got lucky, or he got a break, or what do you say to those people? And one thing I'd put in context with it is timing. Obviously, after the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, it things were kind of starting from a low position and going up. Were you one of those people who were lucky enough to ride the wave of that increasing market, or did you start before that happened?
No, you're absolutely right. I wish I remember when that happened, and at the time, all our money was tied up in a house that we were rehabbing. It was a fix and flip, so we couldn't take full advantage of it. Like I wish I could have, but I think at that time, and I admit I was kind of scared to look, but I think we had about $200,000 or $300,000 saved up, so we definitely rode that up, and that's a huge. I mean that was probably the number one opportunity that happened in my lifetime. That financial crisis. If you had the temperament to stay in the market and put additional money in there, I think the S&P 500 has tripled since then, or more than tripled.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing I'll say for people who say this can't be done is I think I'm a pretty extreme use case as someone who was likely to fail. We didn't grow up in a very nice neighborhood. Most of my friends, I'm the only one who graduated from college. Many more of them went to prison for drugs and all kinds of stuff like that. I had $60,000 in college debt when I came out. So I received no help with that. I got good grades and worked hard. I would say my big advantage is just figuring out a good career. And I'm so thankful that I enjoy computer programming. I mean, that changed my life because it pays well and there's tons of jobs in it. But I don't, there's a million different paths to wealth. I know people who don't make all that money, but buy a duplex and have a roommate, and then they rent the other side out, and they're making money from their housing situation. It might not be much, but still they're up $100 or $200 a month from their house. So I think anyone could do this. It certainly helps if you can find your way into a good career. But the wealthiest people I know haven't made their money from their job either. It's what they've done with their money, and which is usually the real estate or long-term stock market investing. So it's your temperament and what you do. It's certainly not. I'm very thankful for my situation, and I don't think everyone could do it, but I think most people can. It's better to get out there and do it instead of making excuses for why you can't.
So let's talk about the getting out there and doing it part. How much effort was managing your investments? I mean, you had a day job. We're just, for the sake of argument, say you worked 40 hours a week. Any programmer's laughing at that. There's no such thing as a 40-hour week for a programmer. So you would go out and you would do your thing, and you would come home and now do your other thing. And what did that look like? How much of your energy and effort and mental existence went into making money as opposed to earning money?
Yeah, so there's two different components to this, and half of it would be the stock market. I'm a big believer in index funds. There's a lot of research about this from John Bogle, the guy who started Vanguard, and even Warren Buffett, the most successful investor in the world, recommended that most people buy index funds, and not this past year's letter, but the one before that. You can Google the Berkshire Hathaway letter and read that. So not that much thought went into it. I did get lucky with stocks, though. I was obsessed with Google when that came out, so I bought that IPO. And sorry, Seth, but when the iPhone was introduced, I thought that would take off, so I bought Apple stock. And I guess the best move wasn't actually buying the stock; it was holding on to it and not freaking out and selling it at any time. I still hold it. I recently sold my Apple shares, but I still hold all those Google shares to this day, and I think they're about 20 times what they're worth from the IPO. But I don't recommend that for most people. Index funds are the way to go. What really did take my time, though, is the wife and I flipped houses, and we did that before kids, and we also fixed up our most recent one that we bought after I had that bad day at work. So I would go into work, and people would be asking me about zombie TV shows or Survivor, whatever people watch. I'm like, yeah, I was up till 11 o'clock patching drywall or setting tiles. So that definitely took a lot of time. But with flipping houses, there's a IRS rule that says if you live in a house for 2 years and have owned it for the past 5 years, you don't have to pay capital gains on it when you go to sell it. So what we would do is we would buy these old ugly houses in good neighborhoods, fix them up over the course of the time we lived there, about 2 years, and then sell it. And a couple of these we made over $100,000 on. All that cash goes right into your pocket. So we did work very hard. I won't. I will not deny that. But it was mostly the house flipping, not the real estate. And if we didn't do the real estate, and I just had all my money in the stock market, especially when that downturn happened, I probably would have ended up about the same. So I could have actually watched all that TV if I wanted to. Oh,
So you were a stock dabbler prior to this whole experiment. You said you bought Google stock. That was a long time ago when they had their IPO. So you've been dabbling in this market for a while.
yeah, Google was August 2004. God, it sounds like a long time ago.
Miles, you said you had a couple of questions. You have another one?
Well, I think the one thing I'm hearing here is a theme, and I'm trying to see what we can get here for listeners who want to say, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I'm stressed, there's more month than there is money, and how do I get out of this hole I found myself in? It feels like there's no solution, there's no way out, and my gut feeling from all of this, from listening to Carl's story, is that a lot of it comes down to learning to embrace the term delayed gratification. Would you say that's a common theme in your experience, Carl?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Delay your gratification, delay your purchases, and max out your 401k. Most of us who work a normal job have access to it, and that's just an incredible wealth builder. It has tax advantages. You're usually getting a match from your employer. Yeah, but also be happy with where you are in life and try to, I don't want to get too off the reservation here, but try to think about what the true sources of happiness are in your life. Buying a new car is great. It makes you feel wonderful, and buying new gadgets, new phones, and all that stuff. It makes you feel good. I think our brains are wired for that. We get a little dopamine injection in our noggin when we buy something, but that stuff doesn't really provide for long-term fulfillment and happiness. It's more the people and our community, and there's a lot of other factors that go into it much more than the material possessions in our life. So if you want stuff, it's okay. Acknowledge that. You're kind of we're wired that way. It's our biological wiring from the days when we had to acquire stuff every day to survive. But now we live in this great time of extreme wealth. We don't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from, or where our next meal is going to come from. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with this.
No, I think you're hitting it right on the head. I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, I think we all get distracted. It would be a nice way of putting it, from media and ads and social cultures and what people expect of us, what we think of, how we have to present ourselves to people we probably don't even like. And yet that drives our buying powers, and it drives our problems. It drives us all into the dirt. And for somebody like yourself who has avoided the trappings of that sort of thing, come out the other side and been happier and more energized from the experience, we should all be able to take something from this.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Next time you turn on the TV, watch the commercials, and it's pretty interesting. So, for example, if you watch an alcohol commercial, they're not actually selling you beer. They're showing a bunch of people hanging out, a bunch of young, attractive people having a good time. They're selling you a lifestyle. Or if you see a luxury car commercial, there's a young family, and Vivaldi's Four Seasons is playing in the background, and they're going to the symphony, and their friends are looking at their car. So they're not trying to sell you a car. They're telling you you need to do this to fit in to your group or whatever. And it's ridiculous. It's not really that way sometimes. I think most people are selfish. We don't really care what. There's a great blog called White But Why, and they had a post on this. So his main takeaway is that most people are selfish. We think that everyone really cares about what we wear, and where we go on vacation, what we do, but we really don't. Most of us are just standing around looking down at our phones. So
Yeah, and another corollary to that is we spend a lot of time worrying about what people think about us, but the reality is people don't think about us.
Exactly. Therefore, you don't have to worry about it. You can live your own life and be happy that no one's judging you because your car is 8 years old or whatever it is.
So, Carl, I told you we'd take a half hour of your time. We're at that point right now. I don't want to. I want to be respectful of your time. So, I'll just say to you, if somebody was just tuning into this podcast and all they heard was the next thing that was about to come out of your mouth, what's the one message that you want to make sure people hear?
Save and do it while you're young. Save as much as you can. Sacrifice to put money into your 401k, and you'll thank yourself. You're 20 when you're 20 years older. You'll thank your younger self for doing that.
Miles, Seth, any last questions or comments before we say goodbye?
No, I mean I'm blown away. I'm ready to just I don't know, quit and start studying something new right now.
I think that the key takeaway here is that Carl can do it, you can do it, right? I mean, Carl's brilliant in what he's achieved, but he paints a picture to all of us that we don't have to become victims to this, to the bad side of the economy, and we can actually master it and come out the other side and be happier for it.
All right, Carl, I so appreciate you hanging out with. I mean, for a millionaire to deign to spend his time on a humble podcast, that's just that goes above and beyond. I appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. You're not only an investor but a geek, so you fit right in here. But we just thanks for hanging out with us, and hopefully we'll be in contact with you again in the future. You just the next time you buy a corporate jet or something, we'll talk about it or something. I don't know. What do millionaires do? Apparently millionaires go to work. That's what millionaires do.
No corporate jet. I'd like to get on some of Miles' real estate investments down there in Arizona, though.
Yeah, come on down. I'll give you a tour.
Got it.
What I got out of this is starting from your blog. You were 40 years old when you started this, so not an old man, but not a spring chicken either. And in 4 years, less than that, in less than 4 years, you achieved your definition of financial independence. That's not filthy stinking rich, but you don't have to work for the man if you don't want to. And that's an admirable goal, and that's this whole financial February. That's what we've been talking about is making your money achieve your goals instead of the other way around. And you're a success story to that. And I don't know if you've set out to be an inspiration, but that's definitely what you've become. And so I say thank you on behalf of the internet.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that too, and I hope I inspire other people. I'm not. If you picture a millionaire as someone who steps out of their Hummer, lighting their big cigar with a $100 bill, that's not me. But I think I'm probably happier than anyone who actually does that. So,
now you got me thinking. Not the H3s though. I want the first one, the military.
No, I'm talking about the Arnold Schwarzenegger one,
Yeah.
the huge one, the monstrosity.
Yeah, the one where you have to own a gas station and drive to it every day.
Yes, yeah.
All right, Carl. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll say good night now. Appreciate it, and good luck to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It was nice being on the show. Appreciate it.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, and he just hung up. So that's that. So let me take a minute here I'm going to go ahead and save this off so that we're sure we've got it, and then we'll.
Do you want us to sort of stop recording so you've got a separate segment?
Couldn't hurt, yeah. And then we'll follow up with our follow-up so we can talk about him right away, and then we'll go back and do the intro.
Oops, Seth can't hear us, apparently.
Oh. That happens. Sometimes when one Skype call hangs up, another one does.
Oh.
Sorry,
Okay,
Seth.
I'm back.
So, Seth, we're going to
There he
stop these recordings and make new ones really quickly.
All right, stop.
So, in the
Down.
chat room, you're getting to see how the sausage is made tonight.
That went well. I thought he was pretty entertaining.
Yeah. I would love to have had him on for, a couple hours more.
Yeah, he would have probably loved to hang out. He's a regular guy. I mean, it's nothing. He's just a guy.
2, 3.
All right, this says it has about 45 seconds before it finishes rendering.
It sounds like something you do in like cooking steaks and
Bacon.
barbecue and right? or walls. I think that's the other thing. Isn't that what they call plastering in the UK? Rendering?
I don't know.
I am unaware.
Okay.
Man, I tell you what, we've had some rain over here. We got all that California weather. It's sort of, we got the end of it. We didn't get the whole bulk of it, but it's been so wet here. It's horrible.
We're supposed to be getting some rain here.
Well, I live in North Atlanta, so it always rains. Or North Georgia, rather. So, Seth, you might want to jump in the chat room. We do have somebody joining us, and he's actually speaking to you. But I think he was speaking to you, but he meant Miles. He just didn't know it. Because it was Miles who mentioned Maslow.
Oh, Maslow.
Ironically, the two of us with counseling degrees who were forced to study Maslow's didn't bring it up, but you did.
All right, I'm in there.
Okay.
Yay!
There you are.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the chat room.
Oh, so if you're listening, you need the Castback app so that when you're listening on your phone, you can do that very thing. You can make the comments.
Unless he's driving.
Well, there's that. Okay, I'm going to hit recording now.
Oh, yeah.
Again.
So close that one and recording as well.
All right. And so that was Carl 1500. Last name still a secret to the internet, and we appreciate him coming with us, guys. Any thoughts? Any wrap ups? The one thing that we had said before the show, and I just want to reiterate again. He's a regular guy. So if you're a regular guy or gal listening to this and you think you can't do it, there's a regular guy that did it. Yeah, there's a regular guy who was, a programmer with a pretty significant income, but that doesn't mean, it just means it'll take you longer than 4 years.
Yeah. Go ahead, Seth.
I was going to say, I pride myself on being at least a semi-smart guy, and yet here I am a little older than he is, and I always think, I'll make my money tomorrow. Well, I've let a lot of those tomorrows slip by, and had I done, back in the earlier years, I would be in much better shape now. So
he is part of an interesting tribe. He mentioned Mr. Money Mustache, and I'm very well aware of Pete and his journeys. Let me just flesh that out a little bit. Pete, Mr. Money Mustache, is a Canadian who basically studied and got his degree in Canada and then got an opportunity to move and work in the United States. And he was from, in some ways I draw some parallels to this, in others there are a lot of differences between how I grew up and how he grew up. But outside of the US, you typically don't have economies that are as abundant as what we used to here. It's a little harder to make money and keep it. The taxes are higher. The costs of living can be quite high in some cases, particularly food, and the cost of petrol and gasoline is nearly 4 times as much as what we pay for gas here in Australia, for example. You add all those things together, you learn to live on very little. Very little in comparison to the US. A lot if you're living in, comparing it with somebody who lives in Ghana. But in comparison to the US, you're learning to live on little. And what Pete managed to do was when he transplanted himself and his wife now, to the US, he managed to live the same way as he was living in Canada, but with US income. And he understood that, maybe he doesn't need to go and buy a house or rent a house for himself, but he could join up with 3 or 4 other people and share a place. And all these little tricks to be able to keep things in what we would probably call frugal, but to him would be comfortable. That's what he's used to. Meant that he had this abundance of surplus income, and that surplus income went into stocks and real estate and everything else. And he just, continued to live his life as he normally would, while the money just lived its own life. And consequently, he became somebody who found himself in the same situation as Carl. And then all of a sudden he wanted to blog about it. And there's this tribe of people that are following. It's almost, I wouldn't say it's a cult. It's not a cult. It's like a very magnetic thing when there are people out there who are just like us, geeks. They're all programmers or engineers or web designers or something. And they're out there just doing this thing, but they're doing it in combination with a philosophy that allows them to actually keep the money that they're earning and save it. And all of a sudden at 30, 35, 40, they don't need to work anymore. And it's a foreign concept, and it's a concept that I think is growing. The interesting thing is it's being driven by, I would say, a millennial generation. There's a huge number of people in that generation who love and are very attracted to this whole lifestyle. And it's really cool. And at the end of the day, learning to live on less than you spend, no one could argue with that. I mean, that's the right thing to do. Well, at least it is in how I see it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, here's what I'm a Christian. I don't preach it on this show, but I am. And so you say there's this tribe of people who grew up together, encouraging each other in what they do. And as a Christian, I'm supposedly taught the value of community. But yet when it comes to money, for whatever reason, I have chosen to, can't tell people how much I make. I can't, ask for help because then I would admit I was weak. And so I've chosen to neglect all the resources around me and try to do this by myself. And I know from bitter experience that every time I try to do something by myself, I rarely get the outcome I was looking for. And so just, I don't know what I was saying. I had some point and it was going to be epic, but it kind of fizzled out.
Well, the simplest thing there that I was thought of is basic materialism. We're living in a material world, and I am a material guy, with all due respect to Madonna. The simplest thing you just said there: spend less than you make. That's a simple word of wisdom, but simple isn't easy. And it's easier. What am I trying to say? In America, as you said, there is money to be had, and we as Americans we sort of accept that as a birthright, that there's always going to be more money. So along with that has become the culture, heavy on the word cult there, of expecting money to always be available. Therefore, you can spend what you want because there's always more money. The hippies became the yuppies, and they lived that writ large across the skylines of the major cities. Is excess is amazing, greed is good, and that has sort of steeped in the culture of you. Not only do you have a right, as a fundamental right as an American, to have stuff, it's your responsibility to have stuff. And if you don't have the right stuff or the right amount of stuff or the right brand of stuff, you're less American. And it's ridiculous to say that, but am I wrong?
Well, every piece of evidence would refute that. I mean, okay, look at it from a...
Well, hold on. I don't mean that it's morally correct. I mean that it's culturally the norm.
Oh, no, I agree with you. It is culturally the norm. But is it also... What is really hard to understand is that other cultures who don't necessarily share that norm are the cultures we're indebted to.
They're kicking our butts, yes.
No, we owe China $1 trillion, and meanwhile... they wouldn't live like that. Maybe today they do a little bit more, but they're traditionally not. They'll put money under the blanket. They're not, in the mattress. They're not. That's wouldn't even think about the concept of debt.
Yeah, and when you're talking about these very simple things, live on less than you make, save for the future, put stuff away for the rainy day, be the grasshopper and not the ant, or be the ant and not the grasshopper, rather. You're fighting against culture, against normality. You're declaring yourself to be an abnormal human being in America. And that's a difficult thing to do. It shouldn't be difficult, but it is difficult.
Yeah. The thing is, though, this is our last week of financial February, and if there's anything that you could sort of summarize all of the things we've been raving on about over the last few weeks, would be simply maybe the ultimate theme at the end of it is don't live beyond your means. And we all love gadgets and technology, and that's not an inexpensive thing. For most people, it's something you spend your money on, as a non-essential in your life. But I think it can be done in balance. And I think at the end of the day, if you do live within your means and that you have a good savings plan, and that you look to people like Carl, and you look to, the messages that he can bring forward and the potential freedom that you can have in your own life, I think you can have it too. I think you can actually have your cake and eat it too. And the one thing that's really, to me, has always been the driving force behind that is being smart. Being smart isn't something, in my mind, it's not something you go around flagrantly saying, hey, I'm smart, you're not, look what I've got. That's not how it works. Smart is just saying there's an opportunity here for me to do something that maybe everybody else tells me they don't want to do, but I'm going to give it a shot and let's see how it goes. And it's okay to do that. If you believe in yourself and you have some sort of smart approach to doing things, and you think you can manage the risk, take the risk and maybe you'll get the reward. And if you don't, well, maybe you'll learn something about yourself. Just don't do it where you can drag down everybody in your family with you, and don't do it where you, putting your own invested future at risk. But at the same time, I've always lived by the adage, no progress, no risk. In other words, you have to take a risk to get somewhere further forward, and it's just a matter of managing it. Carl's a perfect example of somebody who did it, what he did, and he did take risks in he's flipping houses. That could have gone completely upside down on him. But he took the advantage of a market which had crashed and bought in there cheap, and put his own sweat equity into the building, turned it around, and did really well out of it. Then took those proceeds, invested them back in, doubled down. All power to him. I think this guy's great.
He referenced the book Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. That was written in the late 90s, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And it was a survey of wealthy people with an whose assets minus their liabilities equaled $1 million or more. And what he'll, spoiler alert, go read the book, but what you'll find there, and what Carl told us here, is being a millionaire, being financially independent, isn't sexy. It's boring and simple, and it's the common sense way to live your life. When you chase sexy, you end up being normal, and normal is broke without a plan and in debt. So I gave up on being sexy physically long ago. It's time to give up on being sexy financially, and just be boring and be wealthy.
Yeah, why not?
Seth, what are your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. There's, one of the things I brought it up before, we talked about managing your risk. Don't forget that doing nothing is a risk. Holding on and waiting for the next thing to come along and never taking a chance is also risking, because inflation at any rate is still inflation, and it still eats your borrowing power. I read a story, this Chinese person, we talked about how frugal they were, had buried their money in the ground. Well, the sack they buried it in was biodegradable. And so their money started being destroyed by the planet because they didn't want to put it in the bank. and they didn't want to spend it. They just wanted to hide it. Well, they ended up losing most of their money because it was so deteriorated. There wasn't enough of it left for the bank to, if you rip a note in half, you can kind of tape it together and take it to the bank and get your thing back. Well, they don't. It was so degraded that they lost all their money. So if you don't do and this is what I've done. The chances I've taken have been stupid chances, and then I don't do the boring stuff. I do the hold on to my money or waste it on crap. I don't do the thing in the middle, take manage risk, be boring, and advance your wealth. So don't forget that.
Yeah, Ala, ALA, I don't know how you pronounce it, in the chat room, asked the question, are you familiar with the book from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? I think we've talked about it before on the podcast. I definitely have read it. And, it talks about the difference between rich and wealthy. But I had a problem with that book, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it, was some of the ways that they talk about building wealth through real estate discounts a lot of the costs of real estate. When Miles was going through his version of it recently, it was much more realistic, as you might lose money or you might make a couple $100 when you take all the costs into account. But anyway, yes, I have seen that book. I don't want to keep belaboring this topic. We could go on and on. We're saying the same thing over and over again. If you get anything, a theme out of this financial February 2017, it's don't be normal, be boring, but do something. Do something. And I regret that I had to wait until I was 40 plus years old to do something.
Me too.
I had socked away tiny little bits of something here and there, and I thought that if I had, a couple $1,000s in the bank after I'd paid all my bills, I was in good shape. And for a 25-year-old or a 35-year-old, that's fine. But that's that mentality I was talking about earlier of always assuming there'll be money down the line. And as I've gotten older, as I'm starting to see, the end of my working career, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, you can't work forever, I'm beginning to understand that I need to have a storehouse of treasures. And if I don't have a storehouse, I'm going to be relying on somebody else, be that the government or my family. I would love for my daughters to grow up and become millionaires and take care of their dad and his dotage, but I can't count on that. And if that does happen, great. We'll have many millionaires in the family, myself and them. But the point is, I didn't do anything, and I wasted 20 years like the guy that Carl was talking about. If I had just put a couple of $1,000s away in a growth stock mutual fund in 1998, I'd be set now. But that $2,000 in 1998 seemed like $2 million, and so I didn't even try.
Yep, exactly. I mean, look, you've got to. We said it before. Very simple. You got to get all your debts down to a bare minimum. Pay off all your credit cards. Get all of that stuff out of the way. You got to save up for your rainy day fund. Your emergency fund should be able to cover you in the case of an emergency. And then after that, you start your investing. And the worst thing in the world you can do is to rely on third parties that promise you the moon and deliver you mud. And we know they're out there, and most of them are Wall Street brokerage firms and all these, 3 a.m. infomercials on real estate investing or buying timeshares or whatever you want to call it. They're out there. We're all smart people. We don't fall for that sort of stuff. As Carl said, you take that extra money. It's hard to get to that third point. You get past all that expense control, then you get your emergency fund, and then you get to invest. That's a long journey unto itself. Don't waste the opportunity by chasing, dragons that don't exist. Go with the tried and proven. Go boring. Real estate. Go, stocks. Go Bitcoin. Do whatever you feel most comfortable with, but don't do just one. Do a sort of a diversified portfolio. So if one dies on you, 2 others survive. I mean, the world changes. The markets move like waves in the ocean. They go up, they go down. And the only thing you can always predict is that there's always going to be waves. So you just have to know when to pick up the wave and ride it and when to get off. And that's just a matter of being pragmatic and boring.
Yeah, Carl said that he invested in a couple of things he liked. He likes Google, he invested in Google. He likes Apple, he invested in Apple. But for the most part, he does index funds. Index funds, if like the Dow Jones or the NASDAQ, these are indexes of companies. The Dow Jones, for example, is 30 large companies, and that's the Dow Jones Industrial Index. And so what an index fund does is split your money across all 30 of those companies. And some go up and some go down, but over the history of the Dow Jones, it's gone up. It's gone up a lot, and super extraordinary things happen, and it'll have a huge crash. Have the Black Monday in the '80s. Well, we blew past that a few years later. September 11th, 2011, stock markets crashed, but a few years later, we blew past that. And that's the most brain dead way to invest. You just turn it over to somebody else and say, split my money among all these companies, go do your thing. Mutual funds are a more diverse way to do that. But like I was saying earlier, it's not sexy. It's just throw your money at somebody who knows how to spend it. And of course, watch them. Don't just trust that they're doing it. You have to watch the watchers, but just do it. And when the market's down, that's when you buy. That's not when you sell. And I love that idea that buy a couple of things that you like, and then the rest just brain dead. Index funds. It's simple, and it has worked for as long as we've been keeping records of it.
Yeah, I want to throw a couple of other ideas out there that you might want to think about in sort of summary here. I'm not sure if you guys have tried any of these robo-investing sites like Wealthfront or Betterment.
I haven't.
I opened a Betterment account. I haven't funded it yet, but I plan to.
Well, I've got a Betterment account, and I've had it for probably 6 months. So I'm not in any way an early adopter. I was pretty late to the party on that. But I must say that in 6 months' time, although initially I didn't really see a great deal of return, I'm actually seeing about a 5.1% return on, a not a huge investment in there, but like 50 grand. But 5.1%, I can't get that from a bank. And I'm doing nothing. I just stick this thing on a website and I forget about it. And it's a really nice thing if you're not somebody who wants to, watch CNBC all day and track stocks and be there ready to e-trade this and that. And you just sort of say, you know what, that's counterintuitive. I'm going to screw it up and I don't want to do that. Leave it up to an expert. Vanguard are fantastic for their funds. The robo companies like Betterment and Wealthfront are great. They're a great place to put money, and you don't have to do anything about it. You just stick it there and forget about it, and it just looks after itself. And they do that automatic adjustment between stocks and bonds. So if the stock market goes down, hopefully they have adjusted your portfolio percentage to move you into bonds, as best they can, of course. But it worked for me. I'm not saying you don't take my advice. I'm just saying that it looks good so far.
Yeah, and so if you could get reliably a 5% return on your investment, and you want to make $100,000 a year, then you need to have 20 times $100,000, $2 million invested at the time you stop working. That was super simple math. $100,000 a year income. You got to have $2 million in the bank. 5% return on investment. 5% is not sexy. It's not huge. You can certainly do better in some years, and you can do worse in some years. But that's how you can. That's your target. You can retire if you want to spend $100,000. Retirement isn't an age. It's a number. How do you know when you can retire? When you've got $2 million in the bank. If you want a $100,000 income. If you want a $50,000 income, you need $1 million in the bank. That's when you can retire. It's really simple.
Yeah. It is. And also don't drag around anything like mortgages that you are going to last longer than you will. That's an important thing too. If you were one of those people who got a mortgage back in the, just before the global financial crisis where they were interest only or, they were very favorable for low cash flow, for low mortgage payments going out so that you could get property quickly. It's time now to convert those over to principal and interest loans. The interest rates are probably historically low right now. I personally don't think I'm going to see interest rates this low for the rest of my life. This is the time when, if you can convert those mortgages into principal and interest mortgages that will pay themselves off without you having to worry about it, and ideally hit a 15-year mortgage and see if you can make a way to afford it. That way, then when you get to that 65 or whatever your retirement year is, your mortgage is long gone and you don't have to worry about that. And now you're not having to be forced to have to go and get a job to pay a mortgage payment every month. That's out of the way. You just have to worry about food and some clothes and maybe a trip with the family once in a while, and the basics. So you don't want to be dealing with these high expense items when you're old.
All right, so let's wrap up this discussion by wrapping up the month. Seth, you go first because you haven't said much, and then Miles. So just take a minute or so, and what are your final thoughts, your final message, your wrap up to Financial February 2017?
It is never late to get started. So don't, like when I hear Carl, Mr. 1500 talking, it's like, well, I'm older than he is. And, I'm a lot of years on the other side of 20. So my money's not going to get to double as much. So I'm bleeped, and all I am going to be is bleeped forever. It's not too late. Getting started today is sooner than getting started tomorrow. And if you are at a place to where you don't have a dollar extra that you can invest, you made your rent payment by, shaking the kids' pockets for loose change. Well, a poor person has time, and you can invest in yourself. And there's tons of resources that are available, that you can get a better skill set and get a better job to get you capital to begin this track. So, if you're 60, it's not too late to learn how to code and, and do open source projects or whatever to get you a side hustle coming in like that. So it's not too late. And investing in yourself gives you the ability to invest financially later. So don't forget that. Don't be discouraged. We're all average people here. Some people, we're at different spots along the way, but don't forget about that, and don't give up before you get started.
Excellent. Miles, you're it.
I would just say that, it's like, imagine you're pushing a snowball down from the top of a mountain down the bottom. It takes a lot to get that inertia started. It takes a lot to get that push and get things moving. And then all of a sudden they all start moving by themselves. And then you just watch the thing just roll down the hill by itself. You got to start somewhere, and it's hard to do that initial push. I started with real estate with very little money, and we managed to find a way to, maybe go in with a partner or pay a high interest point to get the first loan for a piece of real estate. And we took the risk, and we managed it very closely, and it worked. But it's not something you're going to get rich quick. You're going to take risks. Do it young in life. If you fall prey to it, if it doesn't work out, you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, recover, and go back out and try it again. Don't try and do this stuff in your later years, because you will not have the ability to recover if it doesn't work out. You want to do it when you're young. And if you aren't young and then look, you have to take a risk somewhere, and you have to be very careful how you manage it. And pick the right investment that's going to fit your lifestyle, fit your personality. If you're risk averse, go with a Betterment and or something like that where you don't have to deal with it. If you don't mind taking on a risk, maybe look at real estate. Look at ways to get into a real estate investment with 20%. Save that money. Do whatever you have to do, but don't delay it, because it's harder to do when you're older. I guess that's it.
And then the last thing I would want to say, everything that they just said, is I agree with, but also along the way, it's important to have fun with your money as well, because that fun can't be what defines your money, but you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, life is such a drudgery; it's not worth the living. So every time you bring some money in, have a plan to spend a little, save a little, invest a little. And if you can do that, you'll be in good shape. Just make sure the trick is keeping that in balance. A lot of people, I was in my earlier days, I was in the same sort of rat race that I bet a lot of our listeners are in. My money was literally gone before I made it. My paycheck went to money I'd already spent. And then began spending money so that I could cover that money later when the paycheck came in. And so my sliders, if you picture a mixer board, my sliders were too high up on the fun category and 0 on the savings category, and way too high on the spending category. But you have to do some of all of those things. And I would also say that giving has to play a part. You can take away, sure, I'm a fundamental Christian conservative, so I believe in tithing. But any book I've ever read, any interview I've ever done, anything I've ever talked to will tell you there is power in giving. Whether that is some mysterious universal power you tap into or it changes your own heart, whatever, giving is an important part of your overall financial plan, I think it should be. I think that's the healthiest way to live. So spend a little, save a little, give a little, invest a little. If you can do those 4 things with every dollar that comes into your pocket, you're on a path to succeed.
Hear, hear.
Well done.
All right. So that is going to wrap up Financial February. We're done. Not really. We'll have some feedback about this. We'll be talking about things as we go on. But this is our last podcast in February. So we had the alliteration. We kind of had to end there. So Seth, tell us what happened this week in history.
Okay, I stumbled across this fact, and I thought it would be cool to share. February the 19th, 1971, the first warrant is issued to search a computer storage device. Although the requirements for obtaining such a warrant were similar to those for searching a home, they ushered in a new era that would lead to increasingly sophisticated methods of encryption to hide computer files from law enforcement agents. That happened this week in history, 1971. And now back to you, Mark.
So the old saying that encryption only exists for people who want to hide their stuff is true. But that doesn't mean only people who have things to hide encrypt, or does it? Yeah, I mean, maybe it does. It's interesting that that 1971, that rat race started. 71, who had, encryption back then? The government probably is the only people who did. But it kicked off that arms race between the encryptors and the encryptees, and it's still going on today, to the point now that mathematically we have encryption so strong it can't be broken. Just there's not enough computational power in the universe to break the encryption. So government is trying to make that illegal because the good guys want to be able to crack into the bad guys, and that's not a bad thing. But it all started, or at least I don't know if it's fair to say it started, but one point early on is 1971.
Wow. So that's a warranted computer search, and I guess in 71 it was what, mainframes and mini
data
computers,
tapes,
data or punch cards or something. Wow. I heard something this week that's kind of salient to that. Well, when you enter the United States and you come into a customs and border protection facility, apparently, and look, I'm not a lawyer, but this is what I heard. Apparently, when you are going through an entry point, there is a zone around that entry point which is not subject to the U.S. Constitution for the purpose of citizens. For law enforcement to need a warrant to search your gear. Therefore, they can search your bags when you come into a country. They can do whatever they want. Well, apparently the word on the street is right now, if you bring your phone in to the US, regardless if you're a citizen, a non-citizen, tourist, whatever, it's very common at the moment for border protection to seize your phone and ask you to, unlock the screen and then just look through your phone very quickly to see if you're, some crazy person with, all these ideas or whatever, or their definition of that. And it's apparently happening right now, from what I understand. It's been a recent a recent enforcement thing going on at the border protection. So be warned, people. If you bring in your electronic devices, you'll probably be asked to give it up and unlock the screen. And no, you do not have rights in those little zones of entry, apparently.
Yeah, because at that point, you're sort of a citizen of no country. Until they verify you as a citizen, you're a suspect, and that's all. Interesting, in 1971, was there data encryption? I mean, had that technology even been invented yet? Sure, the math existed, but had anybody applied it to data encryption? I bet not.
There's no way they could have, because think of where it would be at today. It would be if it had been then, it would have been the norm when the internet started.
Yeah.
And then, the internet, whenever the consumer adoption of the internet took off, it would have been the norm. And then, the conversation would be vastly different today.
Yeah, so the practice at that point, the only protection would have been protection of access.
Right.
Physical access, the door is locked and you can't get to the tape. Or system access, you have to enter a password to get in. But not encryption, just protected access. Once you got access, you could read everything. Today, we have two levels, and we often take that for granted. We protect access and we protect data, just as a matter of course. Every browser session to a secure website has two of those things. You have to log in to, say, your bank, but it's also encrypted over SSL. So it's both encrypted and protected access. And that all, didn't exist back then. But it makes sense that something had to be the tipping point. And a warrant saying, give us these tapes could be it.
Yeah,
Interesting stuff. Okay, so this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can feed back to us. Go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. By the way, I'm going to interrupt my commercial for another commercial. I want to have my website redesigned. I've had a couple of people express interest in that, and I've said, yes, I would love for you to do that. I will pay for you to do that. And that's as far as the conversation ever went. If you are a web coder and you want to take on the task of converting my circa 2011 Drupal site into something modern, maybe another Drupal site, but something modern, I want that to happen, and I'm willing to pay you for it. So there you go. But in the meantime, the Contact Us button is at the top of the page, and if you click it, you'll have to answer the world's hardest CAPTCHA. Fill in the form there. That is emailed to me. It gets priority in my inbox, and we'll read it. Or you can send an email to the now known to be working GeekRant@elementop.com address, and that goes to all three of us so that we'll, lest you think I am filtering the mail from the guys. Or you can call 559-I-AM-OP and record a voice message there, and we'll most likely play it on the show. Tell us what you think.
Or, as we call that, Doors private feedback line.
Yes. That's the door line, the hotline. Tell us what you think. We want to know. We've been considering doing more themes. They don't all have to be alliterative, but a theme month. And we've definitely had some positive feedback on the 10-minute tirade. We'll do some more of those. We're looking at how to structure and format this show in the way that you like it best. So we need to know what you like. So let us know. And now, with that, Seth, what do you have this week to lower my productivity, thus making you seem like a better hiring option?
Okay, this week I have EWW, Everything Wrong With. This is a YouTube channel where this guy who basically would fit in well here, he says everything that's wrong with, and like the link from the show notes will be everything that's wrong with the movie 2012. And the more things that are wrong with it, the longer the movie is. And this is one of the longer videos he's done, because as we've done it, there's been many things that were wrong with 2012, and we've talked about that in the past. But anyway, Everything Wrong With, and then pick your movie, and you can probably find it on his YouTube channel.
Oh yes, the movie sin guy. I know this well.
Cinema Sins is his YouTube channel name.
Yeah, they've done lots of things. My favorite one was Deadpool, where they did all the sins, and then at the end of it, did all the cool things and started reversing sins. We're going to take a point off because that was so cool. We're going to take a point off because that was so cool. So
Yeah, and he does that occasionally. Oh, that was cool. I'll take away sin for that.
Yeah,
And
like-
and there's this one point. I'm just gonna add 50 sins for this thing.
yeah,
It's worth it to add 50. So
his review of Avengers was that scene where Banner turns into the Hulk mid punch, and he was like, "Let's face it, this made the movie. You were here for this." I really like this one. So yeah, I've never subscribed to this. He's just always come up in my other feeds. So
Right.
you did me a favor, Seth. Everything wrong with. And yeah, this will lower my productivity.
yeah, because you'll think, oh, I just thought of that movie. I wonder what this guy says, and then your boss finds it, and then let me know on your way out the door so I can shoot on my resume.
I wonder if he has a Patreon. I would love to support him. Hint, hint. People like being supported by Patreon. By the way, I went to Patreon and I revised all of the rewards because I've realized I suck at giving out rewards. So people that I promised you stuff, I think I've sent everybody everything that they were supposed to get.
Except the bacon guy.
I accept the bacon guy, and I don't think any of the pens actually made it there because nobody told me, hey, I got a pen. So I may be trying that again. But now the rewards are, you're awesome, and you're more awesome because I suck at giving rewards. Sorry, this was a learning experience for all of us, and we've learned that Mark can't follow through with that. So there you go. Go to Patreon. Give us money. That's it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week because that's it for this episode of the GeekRant.
Toodaloo.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So just to make my editing life easier, let's go ahead and make this.
We have to do the front.
Right. Let's go ahead and make this a separate section. So stop and restart.
Okay.
Poopers.
Because otherwise I would have to be listening through and cutting and pasting and moving from here to there. And this will make it easier for me. And really, you exist to make my life easier. Right. I mean,
That
that's
is
been
our job.
established.
As long as you double our paycheck this month.
Triple.
Oh, well, man. Hey, okay, here is, since we're not recording right now, I doubt he would ever do this, but this would be a great 10-minute tirade show where we each pick a film that we love and we spend 10 minutes defending it or setting up the case why it's the greatest ever. And he can be our guest guy telling us why that movie is a piece of crap. And then the other two can kind of be, either for or against. And, like I said, that would be if we could get him as a guest on our show and if he were willing to do it.
That'd be
But
funny.
even if he weren't, that might just be a good show. I think this movie is great because, and it's like, Jane, you filthy slut. And this is why you're wrong.
I had a listener reach out, corporate speak, and say, hey, I'm interested in being a producer on your 10-minute tirade episodes. So that's a thing.
Great.
Cool.
Take a lot of pressure off you, Mark, because it's hard for you to be a producer, facilitator, and also have your tirades. I mean, how do you do that?
People don't know how hard this job is, including me before I started doing it.
Yeah, he got a 15-minute tirade. So,
Right.
Did I really? Because I didn't
it
start
was
the
a
timer.
lot longer than 10.
Well, Miles said call it 3, so I went with it. Yeah, this is hard. This whole podcasting thing, and I listened to a lot of people doing it, and they all made it sound easy. And then I suddenly realized that shows how good they are because they make it sound easy.
Well, even from the one beta episode I did that didn't go anywhere, it was hard trying to lead the conversation as well as contribute while trying to, do basic guiding. It's very tough. So
Yeah.
you do it well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Someday maybe
Yeah,
I'll make some money at it.
I don't know how you do it, to be honest. I mean, it's hard. I feel like I get off light here. I just have to chime in and talk about stuff. It's like that's really hard to do, right? Check the notes out, put a couple of items on there, but that's it, really.
All right, so let's start the show.
Yeah. Okay.
Oops, that's not working. Why is that? Okay.
There is less light in this room than there is in the other room, but I am much brighter over here.
Yeah, I think that's your camera trying to compensate for that.
Well, no, even when I'm in the other one and I just have the overhead light on, the camera's dark. And so this time I tried the camera on the opposite wall, but it doesn't directly bounce back. And then I just now turned it off and it made no difference. So I'm going to try something else next week. Do you need to do that reboot because we've reached the magical time?
Well, I closed my Audacity session. I opened another one, and now it says, "You don't have a mixer."
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, I do. So yeah, I will try the magic reboot. It's never done that before.
It works when I do, and I have a problem.
The magic reboot is powerful. So I was listening to a movie sins thing the other day in the living room, and my 12-year-old said, "Oh, is that the movie sins guy? I love that channel." She discovered it independently. She is so my child.
There is one where he does a Dollar Shave Club commercial at the end. It's the first one I had saw it on, and it was hilarious the way he did it. So, and you've got to watch his, if you haven't seen it, Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Evolution. You've got to watch that because he goes into a bonus round on that.
There we go. Now it's recognizing all 8 channels again. Okay. Check one. All right. I turned my head so my white balance went out on. Okay. There we go. All right. Let's start the show that we've been doing for 2 hours.
I am recording.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geek Rant, episode 273, Mr. 1500, recorded January 19th, 2017, and brought to you by Element Opie Productions, elementopie.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the only place on the internet where geeks rant. You heard it here first, the Geek Rant. Hi, my name is Mark, sometimes known as the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and I'm here to be your ringmaster of this 3-ring circus. And joining me this week, as always, are your 2 stalwart co-hosts, Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson, and Miles, the Aussie Janeer Wakeham. Hey, gentlemen.
Howdy, y'all.
Yeah. Hello from the ring in Arizona.
So there's rain in the desert. That's a thing that happens once in a while, right?
Yeah, California, you can have your water back. Man, tell you what, they got I guess there ain't no drought there anymore. Man,
Well,
it's really heavy.
You know, they might need it back because from what I hear, they're dumping all their extra water in the ocean because it would be bad for their drought if they kept it.
Oh, jeez. I mean, I wouldn't want to be living in any area up there that's got a lot of rain. I mean, you see those mudslides and the dams bursting and everything like that, but doesn't it feel like such a waste to see water just rolling out of the dams like that in a place that's been living in drought for so long? But
Well,
hey,
you know,
Mother Nature, what do you do?
Yeah, not to turn this thing political, but at least all the undocumented immigrants get like more basic social services than the citizens do. Who cares if the dam fails as long as everybody feels good about it?
Oh,
Yeah, that's not getting political. So this is the last episode in our financial February for 2017. Some of you are cheering that it's the last, and some of you are booing that's the last. But either way, that's the end. And we're joined tonight by a guest who will be on momentarily, Carl 1500. That's his name, Mr. 1500. You can check out his website, 1500days.com. And he's going to tell us about his journey from financially dependent to financially independent in 1,500 days. So he'll be up a little later. But while we've got him waiting in the wings, let's be rude and ignore him. He's not really here. and talk about some other stuff. And you guys, I don't even remember what you said, but something you said reminded me of what I was going to say, so I'm going to say it anyway. I just started watching this week The Expanse. You guys seen that? It's a sci-fi book that the Sci-Fi Channel made a series out of. Season 2 is now on. Season 1 is on Amazon Prime, which is why I started watching. Have you guys seen any of it at all?
Not I.
No, I've heard of it, but I have not seen it.
So I'm 3 episodes in, and I think that's as far as I'm going to go, for a couple of reasons. One, it looks like it's turning into one of those space politics things, and not really space. It's a drama that happens to be in space rather than a sci-fi. And I understand people love that kind of thing. Babylon 5 is revered as like the greatest example of that.
Loved Babylon 5.
That it's not for me. And so I gave it 3 episodes, and I don't think I'm going to give it another one because I'm still waiting for it to get good. And people were saying, "Oh, this is so good. This is the best thing ever." Maybe it gets good in episode 4, but so far it hasn't gotten good. But the real reason that I hate it is this is a space movie on the Sci-Fi Channel that doesn't have even the most basic understanding of physics. And once that happens, I'm just out. There's a scene, this is not a spoiler, where a ship is damaged and guys are doing an EVA to repair the ship. So they're traveling at thousands of kilometers per hour on this ship, and they're out there repairing it. And at some point, the guy lets go of the wrench, and the wrench flies off away from him because 15,000 kilometers per hour. Except no, because physics. If he dropped the wrench, it would stay right there, right in front of him, because it's moving at the same 15,000 kilometers per hour that he is. And it would take a change in velocity. So at that moment, I'm like, I'm over this. But there was another thing that came before it that already set me up for it. It was the classic trope of the hatch got blown and several Earths worth of oxygen and atmosphere vented out of it for several minutes while people fought and jumped and worked to get the door closed. That's not how it happens, people. All the air in a space like that evacuates, no matter how large the space is, in a second, and you're dead, and you're sucking vacuum, and that's it. No, there's no dramatic sparks. There's no music. There's no guy jumping from one level to another and landing on his broken leg and stretching with everything he's got to close the thing just in time. No, that's not physics. And frankly, at that point, I'm done. No, just me? Okay.
I never started. I remember Steve, back when I listened to Security Now, they were talking about this and kind of looking forward to it. So maybe some of the reasons people enjoy it is because maybe the stories stick close to the books, and it's one of those, I get to see this on screen thing. Yeah. So that might explain some of the popularity.
So am I the only one who gets bothered by physics mistakes in movies?
It depends. So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Okay.
I must have a very high tolerance for that because I like The Walking Dead. I mean, how non-physics could that get?
Well, I mean, how long has the show been going? Like 7 years? Eventually, they're all going to rot, right? How long does it take for these dead people to rot?
Well, actually, the show isn't any more about dead people now. I mean, it's very rare that they even have dead people in an episode. I mean, the odd one, but it's more about, how humans try to when you vacuums of power and people coming in and replacing it, and it's become this big sort of epic, human, I don't know what you call it, apocalyptic, the result of apocalypse and how humans react to it and how they grow and all that sort of thing. But I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
And apparently, if you've got a baseball bat and some barbed wire, you can be king.
Oh yeah.
I have never seen a single episode, but that's what I know about this season. That if you have a baseball bat with some barbed wire, you can be king.
Well, that's the power of Negan. But anyway, yeah, you're right.
Lucille.
Yeah, Lucille. Yeah.
But anyway, so that was my media rant of the night. Seth, you saw something that I was interested in, so I'm hoping you'll tell me good things.
Okay. I went and saw the movie The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, and spoiler alert, there's really no spoilers. It's a romantic comedy, and it does the tropes, but it does them in a funny way. And the thing I liked about this is normally when you go see movies about Christians, they're either the butt of jokes or they're the self-righteous, you're going to go to hell till you find out they're all hypocrites. This was a movie that treated my faith with respect, so it wasn't like a preachy, like some of the God's Not Dead, where, it's like trying to tell you that you're going to go to hell if you're not a Christian. It's just like, hey, we're Christians and we're normal people and we do stupid stuff too, and we're going to have some fun with it. And so I really enjoyed it. It was worth my watching, and I'm glad I saw it. So, it's not high drama. There aren't big plot twists. You know what's going to happen because it's a standard romantic comedy. You can say, oh, I bet this is going to happen here. Yep. I bet this is going to happen here. Yep. I bet this is going to happen here. Yep. But overall, it's like, wow, they did a really good job. And one of the weird things about it is the WWE was involved in the production and distribution of it, and Shawn Michaels has a major part in the film. So everybody my age who grew up on wrestling, you get to see Shawn Michaels act in a movie.
And he probably acts as well as you expect him to.
I mean, none of them are going to win any Oscars, but it was better than a lot of the quote unquote Christian films you see, where you can tell that they weren't hired for their acting prowess.
Yeah, they were church members.
So, I mean, better than anything you would find that the Asylum puts out. So,
all right.
Which, granted, that's not a high bar, but it is a bar.
I remember seeing a preview for that, and I don't know if it's playing anywhere around me. Is it kid friendly?
Yes, it's very kid friendly.
Okay.
It's kind of on its way out of the theaters now. It was released the latter part of January, so it's been in the theaters for about a month, but it is still out there. It hasn't made it to the dollar ones yet. So yeah, kid friendly. I don't I don't think there's anything. I don't remember any bad words or anything that any elementary school student wouldn't see.
It's funny how that memory goes, because I'll sit down sometimes to rewatch a childhood favorite like Short Circuit, for example, and I'm like, whoa, there were like 37 F-bombs in the first 2 minutes. I didn't remember that.
Right.
But yeah, anyway. I unfortunately have seen the Trolls movie several times this weekend because I have daughters.
Right.
I hated everything about that movie. And my 12-year-old was like, why don't you like this movie, Daddy? And it's like, do I have to tell you? Really? I mean, it's just enough to know that we watched it downstairs on the big screen, and I was there with you because it was a family thing, but I didn't like it. And can we just leave it at that? No, she had to press. She wanted to know why. Okay, fine. It's derivative. It's boring. It's predictable. You pretty much knew the entire plot by the time it was over. The music wasn't even good. It was just whatever free music that they had available that DreamWorks didn't have to pay for because they already owned the artist. There were no characters that you cared about. The animation was mediocre. And at the end of it, I felt nothing. And she just stared at me and said, well, is that just because it was cartoon? I said, no, you've seen me blubber like a baby during Pixar movies. It's because it's a bad movie. So I didn't want to dash my daughter's dreams, but she drug it out of me. So Trolls, no, it's fine for 12-year-old daughters, but that's it. My 14-year-old left the room. I mean, she family wasn't enough of a bond for her to stay and watch that movie.
Yay, 14-year-old.
So Miles, you have something non-media related to talk about.
Well, yeah, I just a discovery. I watched an episode of Ask This Old House a couple of weeks ago, and they had this company, I guess they were in Massachusetts or somewhere up that way, called Sense. Have you guys ever heard of these guys?
Nope.
Not I.
Okay, so I've I don't know if you're a geek and you have a house and you're worried about your power bill, like I am. I'm trying to sort of prep up for solar power one day. You want to know that you're using the minimal amount of power that you could use. But it's really hard when you've got all this technology around the place. I mean, it draws a lot of power, and you can never point to, oh, if I could just get rid of that thing or upgrade that thing, I'd save X amount of money in power. everything just gets kind of mixed up in this mess, and you can never work it out. And I bought those, those little kilowatt things that you can plug into the wall and
Right.
then plug your thing. It tells you.
Yeah, I
Well,
have one of those.
Yeah, I've got like one of those, but I've got probably 100 things I plug into the wall as well, so I can never work out which one's the culprit, taking all my power. So I thought, well, this is it's a no-win situation. Anyway, I find out about this company, and they've got this really interesting idea. Now, I'm not an owner of any of their stuff yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to be. I maybe, but it's intriguing how they've done it. What they've done is apparently, if you look through an oscilloscope at the frequency of power draw that any technology device that you plug into a mains outlet, they all draw power with a slight variation in the way that their sort of signature is. A washing machine versus a TV versus a stove versus your computer. They all draw power on it. If you look at the wave on an oscilloscope, there's very, very, very slight difference between each device. So what this company's done is they've got this box that you attach to your main circuit on your house, and it checks the frequency of draw throughout your house and assigns the different frequencies to different devices. And then you get this app on your phone, and it says, we've detected all these different devices drawing power at these different rates. So some, draw a lot and some don't. Some are always on, some come on periodically. You can tell it what that device is. Like if you say, this is my washing machine, it may already know because it's got this cloud database of appliances and their, frequency draw or whatever. So it's going to probably tell you 75% of the devices that it's detecting. And then you can fill in the gaps for the rest. And the whole idea is to look at your overall power consumption and what each thing is, what percentage of that each device has. And you might be finding that maybe the pool filter you've got is drawing way too much power, and spending $1,500 for a new pool filter could save you $3,000 in 2 years' time. And then, you work it out and you invest accordingly. And it's a $299 device. It's not that expensive. Just a little box, you plug it on your mains and you connect your phone app to it and off you go. I thought it was fascinating but look, does it work? I don't know. I can't find too many people out there reviewing it yet, but keep it on your radar. It's called Sense.
So you didn't
SENSE.
purchase it. You just saw it.
I just saw it. No, but when I saw it, I thought, you know what? That would solve a need. I have a need that would solve. And I will keep an eye on it and find out whether or not it actually does work.
Because I'm looking behind you, Miles, in your thing there. And between computers and monitors, I can count just in frame 13 different power drawing devices.
Yeah.
It's going to know what those are?
Apparently.
That's some really sophisticated math. So if I've got my microwave on and my AC on and 3 light bulbs on, that's going to be a lot of different waves coming in at once. And it's saying it can filter out individual wave patterns in the mass. Does SETI know about this software? Because this is powerful.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's why I'm skeptical. But at the same time, the review of the device also was a review of the company and their technology. And they brought the film crew in and showed the programmers at work and what they were doing. And you would see them looking at a power. It's kind of like a wave. It was very similar to looking at like audio waveforms on a screen. But you would see it as kind of the frequency draw that a device would have as a waveform. And then once they identified that device, they would tag it. They would put it in the cloud as this is a Samsung washing machine model, whatever. And then whenever you would turn that on, it would recognize and match to the frequency and come back and say, hey, that's a Samsung washing machine and it's drawing this amount of power. Hey, if this works, this is awesome. But I don't know. I guess we'll find out. It's pretty new, though.
Yeah.
Could you not get... you might not get the eliminating what is what, but for $200, you could buy an awful lot of those
kilowatts
things you put at the plug and identify your things, and a little bit of moving them around would go a long way. And then, you wouldn't have all that money tied up in one thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. For my house, the things that have always had the greatest power draw are things like air conditioners, pool pumps, things like that. Probably lights. And although I've changed all my lights out to LEDs, and I've done the normal thing to try to reduce that down, we did see a massive reduction in power, almost to about $80 a month, by changing our pool filter out to a variable speed filter that was far smarter. So that worked out to be a good investment. At the same time, though, when I went in to do it, it was hope, not fact. I had no evidence that could tell me whether that was actually going to have a return on investment. So I went in there blindly going, let's just punt, and let's just see if this worked. And in that particular case, it did. And I'd just like to get more evidence, and this might be a device that can help.
Okay. I'm skeptical, but there is magic all over the place. And, this might just be magic.
Yeah.
I don't have any listener feedback this week because I anticipate this show being bordering on the scale of epic with the interview and everything. I am getting your feedback. If you send it to me and I didn't say anything, don't worry. I got it. The email is working. And there's some of you figured out that I do my prep work Sunday afternoon before a Sunday night recording. And if you send me an email during that time, it's more likely to make it in the show. I'm onto you. I'm onto you, people. And you're right. But it's interesting. Sunday afternoons, I get more feedback than any other time of the week because the people who feedback, it's not many, right? There's like a dozen people who do it on a regular basis. They've cracked the code. If you send it right after, like while the show comes out on Wednesday, you're less likely to make the Wednesday show because your email gets farther down in my list.
No, it's they have the same schedule we do, and their free time is Sunday afternoon, and that's when they're listening to the last week's episode.
Sure, that's it. But no, I do like listener feedback, and I will get there, just not this week. So without any further ado, let's bring on Mr. 1500, Carl 1500 to you and me, and let's hear what he has to say about financial independence in less than 4 years. And scene.
Perfect. That's all the pieces of the puzzle.
This is going to take me forever, but that's all right.
Sorry, man.
It's unattended time because every time I do one of these, I have to let the computer crank on it for a little bit, and it's my little Fisher-Price laptop. So it's not like it's sucking my life away. It's just unattended time.
Well, it's going to be a long one, I think. Well, maybe not too bad. Maybe, hour and a half to 2?
Yeah, it looks like about 90 minutes.
It's not going to be near the length of last week's show.
Oh, we went overboard on last week's, didn't we?
Oh, I wanted to mention a brief thing about it because we did not cover it well. We probably didn't cover either one well.
Well, that's true. But it was a survey, and we can come back to it. All right. So that's saved. Let me just actually check and make sure that I didn't even play any of the audio to make sure I got him. I can see the waveform there, but is he actually there?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, he's there.
Woo!
Good stuff. All right, guys.
Great.
What are we going to talk about next week? We don't have a theme.
Do we have enough for a full-blown listener feedback? February feedback?
Let's see.
Could do
1,
tirade.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, if I go all the way back, we've got 14 different things that I could read. So, yes, absolutely. It could be a listener feedback show.
Yeah, we'll do a whole episode on listener feedback.
Sure. It's been a while since we did one of those.
Well, we haven't done any news, so we could do a news story or two, and then the feedback, and then once we get to a certain point, we can cut it off And,
Yeah, I mean, it's literally been months since we've done any significant news.
right.
Yeah.
The question in the chat room: what theme are you considering talking about? We're not really sure. We definitely are going to do a network theme, home networking. Before we do that, though, I want to pull the trigger on and do some real testing on either a Google Wi-Fi or an Eero, because I need it for my own home. But that's the only theme that we have right now, and we haven't really talked about it. It's just been a couple of quick discussions here and there. So if you have a suggestion, let us know.
I think we could do a movies themed week.
Sure.
I mean, a movies themed month. One of them be like a tirade, a tirade movie month extravaganza blowout or something. And then, some other topics about movies.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a guilty pleasures episode. What's a movie that you like but you don't like yourself for liking?
Right. I know what mine would be.
And we could talk about why. Yeah, that's good stuff. Of course,
like I say, it could be a movie month. So, and just the different aspects of it along the way, maybe.
And we could revisit media centers. That's something we covered a lot over the life of the show. And there's not really anything new, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't.
Well, we get Miles'
it.
takes on Plex. You and Miles could have a man crush on each other, and I'll take that week off.
Plex. Actually, I've been doing some stuff with. I've been doing a lot of work with. Oh man, now my mind's gone blank. FreeNAS.
Okay.
We actually have FreeNAS in the closet down in Dallas. There, Seth. One of the machines is running a 48 terabyte FreeNAS server for all the other servers there, and I just put one in the house. But I've also got Unraid here.
Yep.
On a couple of servers, and I could talk about A to B comparisons on those, or maybe other NAS storage stuff. I mean, storage is important these days. So.
Right.
Again, we've been around so long, it's hard to think of something we haven't covered before. But that doesn't mean we can't revisit things. But I like Seth's idea of moving more into the pop culture, geek culture stuff, and less, not to say less technical, but we no longer have to be restricted to technical. I mean, we've done lots of politics episodes recently.
Yeah, it's not. It's like everybody's doing politics nowadays. Right. I can't believe I've ever seen a situation in the world where every single leading news story on every single channel has Trump on it. No matter what you do, every leading story is that. And you have to ask, surely other stuff is going on in the world that's newsworthy.
Much in America.
I am so sick of the whining. And it's we're not even 100 days in, and I'm sick of the whining.
Yeah.
On both sides.
I mean, there had to have been some like tsunamis or earthquakes or something. Really? Asteroids? Something?
Come
Surely
on,
somebody was murdered, right?
Yeah. Really? But no, we don't hear about that stuff anymore. End of the world, boring.
And of course, my whole Facebook feed is so-and-so destroys Trump in one sentence. And it's always a different person, right? But anyway,
I have a schizophrenic Facebook feed. I've got the ultra right wing, so and so, and then Black Lives Matters gets destroyed by White Lives Rule, and then you have these, and then I have several friends who are part of the GBLT lifestyle, and and then so you have all their. It's like I have a schizophrenic Facebook feed, and it's kind of it's hard to watch just going through it. So,
all right, YouTube peoples, we're going to say goodnight now. Thanks for hanging out with us, Ala. Come back next week and bring 10 or 12 of your closest friends.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see you later.
Cool.